Hi, hello everyone. You're all very welcome to this webinar, indeed, on managing ergonomics in the workplace, or how to achieve best practice in ergonomics management in the workplace. As Tony said, I'm Dimitri Porquet. Indeed, I'm French. Don't hold that against me. So yeah, I was born in the suburbs of Paris in a city called Trappes. But it wasn't a trap really, because I'm here now anyways, and I spent a good bit of my childhood in China, in Shanghai, which was a really great experience just to see a different culture, different ways of doing things, kind of broaden the spirit a bit, opens the mind, and also helped to make it a tad more difficult for native speakers to actually figure out that I sound French when you listen to me. But then after this experience, I went back to the home country where I studied, indeed, as Tony said again, at the UTBM, the University of Technology of Belfort-Montbéliard in the east of France, where I studied an engineering degree in pretty much designing products using a user-centered, human-centered approach. With a background of mechanical engineering, industrial design, eco-design, and a good bit of ergonomics. And as said again, in 2022, my degree led me to Ireland through a work placement, which I did in Waterford at LC Workplace Safety, where I'm now very happy to work for a few years now. And yeah, if you're in the field of ergonomics in Ireland, or you're maybe a health and safety professional in the industry sector, you probably have heard of Ita Layden, and she founded LC Workplace Safety. We provide consultancy and training on health and safety and ergonomics, and I am more involved on the ergonomics side of things anyways. So providing office ergonomics course assessments, DSC videos, if you ever heard of them. Ergonomics task-specific assessments as well, like going to clients' shop floors and assessing whichever workstations or task they would be doing. Could be repetitive tasks, manual handling, anything like that. I also provide the manual handling training, and we try to make it as task-specific as possible, so we can go to clients' workstations, clients' workplaces, and do task-specific manual handling as well. A good bit of environmental ergonomics as well, so maybe noise monitoring, dosimetry monitoring, slip risk assessments. I also provide training on the use of ergonomic tools that I'm going to talk about a bit more in this session there. Bit of driving ergonomics assessments as well, and more globally, LC as a company, we provide support on ergonomics management to our clients nationwide. So if you follow the society and its events, you most likely have heard of the fact that there's not just one path leading to ergonomics. So I personally have an engineering degree, an engineering background, and that's especially beneficial if a client asks me to redesign a workstation or a tool that they would be using. And I don't have a health safety background, but now serving clients nationwide for a few years, I still have a good understanding of the rules and regulation of health and safety in Ireland at this point. That's it. And now what I'm going to talk about is your ergonomics management. This is really important because good ergonomics practices reduces cost, absenteeism, and injuries. It also improves safety, morale, employee engagement, and productivity. By the end of this little presentation there, you'll have a better understanding on the key principles of ergonomics management. It will take, I don't know, probably about 30 minutes. And I will facilitate this using just illustrations of each element of the framework. So let's start with the start, which is having an ergonomics program, And here I'm going to talk about the structural elements of your program. And this means going from a starting point, an initial situation, and going towards a target. And your program is basically the path leading from the start to the target. And you might have some milestone as well along the way, just like quarterly meetings with senior management to talk progress or whatever it is. But the most important thing that I want to get across here is to have your program approved by senior management team. This is really important because your ergonomics program is just like any project. It requires resources, so human resources, time resources, and a budget. And having the senior management team on board will lead the program to its fruition. Now, once you have your program approved, what's really important is to assemble your Avengers. And what I mean by that here is to have a team of clearly defined roles and responsibilities by competent individuals. And that doesn't just mean having the manual handling instructor giving the manual handling training, or the DSE assessor carrying out the computer workstations assessments. It could be just very simply bringing people together to suggest improvements as well. So not just health and safety, not just ergonomics, but bring different backgrounds, different profiles around the table. Like having Johnny from line 2, or maybe Tom, the production manager, or whatever it is, just to suggest improvements. So my third point there, once you have a good team around you that you can work with, and having as many people on board, is to keep reviewing and updating your program. Throughout your milestones meetings with senior management, you'll probably have to show evidence of your actions, your improvements, and that is most generally done with, it's communicated throughout with clear KPIs, key performance indicators on the ergonomic related issues. And ideally, this progress, these results would be communicated to all, not just the senior management team, but to all of the workplace, everyone working, in a digest way, as digest as possible. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to get across here is to show progress and communicate on your program throughout, just to have as many people on board with yourself. So here I just gave you 3 points relating to the structure of your program. These were to involve senior management in your program, assemble your Avengers, and to communicate on your progress. Now I'm getting into the thick of it, which is figuring out what's wrong with the starting point situation. So what that is simply identifying hazards. There are tools that are very readily available coming from health and safety, and that can be used for ergonomics as well. The first one that I generally mention is your incident investigation. That's literally figuring out the root cause of an incident. And the message here is obviously to use this kind of tool, but not only to exhaustively investigate the incident, but also to never conclude on human error as the root cause of your incident. Because if you do, you're essentially blaming and shaming people, and you're definitely not improving the workplace whatsoever. You're actually rather affecting morale and employee engagement. And that can be very detrimental to your program. So what we want is to go a bit deeper, investigating why the human erred, if that's the case. And then you might be able to take action and carry out changes in the work design to prevent similar incidents happening in the future. So this incident investigation is a reactive tool, which means you have to wait for something to go wrong and then investigate on it. But there are some tools that are a bit more proactive, so you don't have to wait for something wrong to happen. And such tool, very simply, it's a mouthful, but a proactive hazard identification system is what I'm talking about here. And you probably have heard it on very simple terms called near miss, good catch, close call, good save, narrow escape, whatever it is. It all means the same thing. It's basically a way for employees to report hazards identified in their daily tasks. It's a way for them to report incidents, report hazards instead of reporting incidents, which is before something wrong happens. So that's very beneficial. But oftentimes what we see is that we see it as mostly a health and safety tool. So it looks generally like this. I literally took that from internet, near miss incident report. And what we're looking at here is basically the situation that we're describing. So you can see a few check boxes there. Risky behavior, faulty equipment. You can read, they're all related to health and safety. And it really doesn't take millions just to add a few tick boxes relating to ergonomics, which will allow us to flag any ergonomics related hazards. What I generally suggest in that case is just a few tick boxes added. So we have the 4 ergonomics risk factors: excessive force, awkward posture, repetition, and duration of exposure. These are your 4 ergonomics risk factors. And I generally add as well another one that's poor design, which is also linked to human factors and ergonomics. The fact that if you have a switch next to an equipment, well, it might not mean that this switch turns on or shuts off the equipment that's next to it. I'm currently getting trained in Lotto, and generally that's one thing that we stress on, is to have labels on switches, because maybe if you turn on the switch there, that might turn on something that's at the other end of the company, because just things happen like that. Things are never that straightforward. So yeah, poor design could be a good thing to report here, and it's flagged as ergonomics human factors indeed. And this near miss system provides the opportunity to obtain key levers of improvement directly from the work experts, which are the operators on the shop floor. And I just gave you 2 tools here to identify hazards. So these were to investigate incidents and to have a near miss system. So now that we've talked about hazard identification, what we need to do is to carry out risk assessments. And when I say risk assessment, I mean relevant ergonomic risk assessments. I'm stressing this here because coming from an engineer's perspective, looking at health and safety risk assessments, sometimes it seems rather loose and a bit subjective, whereas coming from an engineering's background where you have to follow and apply rules, very mathematical, logical rules, it can be indeed a bit subjective and loose. Whereas there are some ergonomic risk assessment tools out there that are very, very practical and hands-on that I'm going to talk to you about just right here. And there are lots of things that can be assessed in a workplace. You can have your computer workstations, your repetitive tasks, your manual handling tasks, your awkward postures, and maybe you have employees driving for work, and maybe you have a noisy workplace as well. And we all have risks of slip, trips, and falls. And all these can be assessed with relevant risk assessment tools. For example, the HSA, the Health and Safety Authority in Ireland, has a detailed DSE VDU assessment form available on their website to assess computer workstations. The HSE UK has developed the assessment for repetitive tasks, the ART tool. They have also developed the manual handling assessment chart, the MAC tool for lifting, lowering, carrying, team lifts operations, as well as the risk assessment for pushing, pulling, the RAP tool. And then if you have maybe awkward postures in your workplace, well, coming from research, what we generally recommend using is the tool that was developed by Sue Hignett from Loughborough University and Lynn McAtamney, which is the Rapid Entire Body Assessment, the REBA tool, to assess awkward postures. Going back to the HSE UK, they have developed the back injury risks in driving, the BIRD tool, and as well as the noise exposure tool. And finally, to assess slip risks, there's very straightforward methods like the pendulum method and the slip alert method, which are also very straightforward as well. So that being said, all very straightforward ways to assess things, very straightforward tools, but I always strongly recommend being trained and competent before using any of those tools, or to get competent consultants in to do the job for you. So these risk assessments, what I see sometimes in workplaces, that you could have all risk assessments done, ergonomics assessments done, all covered, happy days. But then you start walking on the factory floor, and then talking to the people there doing the tasks, and you actually realize that what you have in your risk assessment doesn't reflect whatsoever the real life scenario and how people are actually doing the tasks on the shop floor. That can be because there was a new equipment that was introduced, or maybe just because what the risk assessment reflects a very theoretical procedure that is not practical at all. And so my second point here is to involve the ergonomics team or the health and safety team whatsoever, whatever it is, in the change management procedure. And what I mean here is that companies nowadays have this in their ERP system. So whenever there is a equipment purchase or a significant change to the work design, well, risk assessment should be reviewed and updated accordingly, and ergonomics can have a very good guidance in purchasing an equipment. For example, in comparing two equipments, which one is better for ergonomics and things like that. So involving ergonomics team in the change management procedure. The reason why I'm saying that is to avoid the kind of situation where you have Tom from production that maybe have purchased a brand new electric pallet truck, and he's very happy with the brand new electric pallet truck. And maybe you have Dimitri from Ergonomics that was just doing a quick walkthrough there in the warehouse. And just asked this Tom, like, that's a very nice tool you have here. Very good. It's very good. When did you have that? Did you just get it in? And Tom says, no, actually, we ordered that 2 years ago. That's in there for 2 years now. And all right, Dimitri's like, okay, all right. I didn't know you had that here. And now I think of it, I have a risk assessment for that. That says that you're using pallet trucks, and it's a high risk. It's like, all right. It's like, no, we don't do that for 2 years. Production manager says, your risk assessment is now completely outdated. And just doing this work through, you figure out that your risk assessment is completely outdated. And with this new equipment, maybe your risk assessment is now a low risk, and that's great news for ergonomics. But yeah, this involving ergonomics in the change management procedure just avoids this kind of situation where you're discovering stuff that you haven't been reviewing your risk assessment as early as you should have. And that's it. So I just gave you 2 points there relating to risk assessments, which were to carry out relevant ergonomic risk assessments and to include ergonomics in the change management procedure. So now let's talk about awareness of ergonomics. The reason why is because what's the chance you meet someone in the street and they know what ergonomics is, or even let alone human factors in ergonomics? What I get generally is ergo what? Yeah, people generally don't have an exact idea on what is ergonomics. So maybe they say, oh yeah, ergonomic products. So yeah, products they're easy to use or something like that. So it goes a bit further than that. And so what we try to get across here is that best practice is to raise awareness on ergonomics as much as possible. The best way to do it in the workplace is to introduce it in the induction process when you have new starters coming into the workplace. Just giving a quick introduction to ergonomics doesn't have to be heavy or anything like that, but it's great just to give that initial kind of introduction on ergonomics, just so that people have heard of it and know loosely what it relates to. And that could be just involving the ergonomics risk factors, as I said, awkward posture, excessive force, repetition, duration of exposure. And it could be good as well to relate that to a site-specific example. So maybe you have computer workstations. Well, just simply saying that, yeah, if Dimitri is leaning on his laptop for 8 hours a day, bending his back, so you have awkward posture combining with duration of exposure, yeah, Dimitri has a big chance of injuring his back here. And what works well as well is to pair that awareness training with a manual handling training. It goes together fairly well. And best practice would say to do a task-specific manual handling training. What I mean here is just taking the people from induction out of the training room for once, getting them on the shop floor, and letting them do the actual lifts, the actual tasks, manual handling tasks that they could be doing on the shop floor. And believe me, they will appreciate you for taking a few minutes out of the training room when they're in induction for the whole day. Again, the last thing that I'm going to say here is to just to remind you the requirement for competence of the individual giving the training. Make sure that he knows what he's talking about. They know what they're talking about anyways. And following this intro to ergonomics, what we recommend always is having a refresher training, and could be provided as often as reasonably practicable. So what we generally say for this one is every 2 to 3 years. For all employees, obviously, not just the people on the shop floor, the technicians, the operators, but also and mostly the managers, so that they're on board as well with your program. And best practice would also recommend reviewing contents of courses on a yearly, bi-yearly basis, just to ensure reflection of current data and current practices. Because yeah, if you have in your presentation an example that's 10 years old, this will greatly affect your credibility, unfortunately. So here, that was a single point just to raise awareness of ergonomics, and by just carrying out regular awareness trainings to employees and managers and everyone. So at this point, we've talked about risk assessments, trainings, accident investigations, near-miss systems, and these are all loads of ways to figure out what's wrong with your initial starting points situation. What follows is the implementation of controls, which is hopefully to solve what's wrong. So controls and improvements can sometimes be straightforward to identify, and others rather complex, and having the right people around the table there is the way to find the best solutions, the most robust situations there. As I said at the beginning, having the right people around the table, diversifying the profiles is a very good idea, because indeed the ideal ergonomic solution is safe, it's used by the operators, and it also improves productivity. And so if you want to ensure all those three things there, you might have maybe someone from health and safety to ensure that the solution is safe. Maybe have someone from the shop floor, maybe Johnny from line 2 indeed, to make sure that okay, this I can see myself using this control, that's a good improvement, perfect. And having someone like a process engineer or the production manager, whatever it is, to ensure that the task, the improvement, the so-called improvement will not completely destroy the productivity and the rates of the processes in the company. So yeah, diversifying the profiles around the table is the way to go. And controls also have to be tracked through completion. That's the best practice. And having a formal system to track your open actions is really what we want to stress here to ensure your progress. The way we do it in LCE is using our in-house ergonomic management system, which is called Easy Ergo. And it does it this way. So it's basically like that, very straightforward. Just puts a responsible person, an expected completion date, a risk that's related to the open action, related to the risk assessment, and the status of that open action. So you can see in the first line here, the first action is completed by the warehouse supervisor. Happy days, great. But on the second line, the warehouse manager still has an open action here that's pending, and it's actually a high risk, so we better get to it. And that's the way you can track with a formal system your open actions. And controls also should be reviewed for effectiveness. What I mean here is to ensure that they actually work, they actually improve things on the shop floor. Reassessing the task, for example, could be a good thing. Reassessing after the implementation of a control, just to make sure that it actually reduces the risk. Or making sure, for example, if it's an engineering control, making sure that it's used by all. So making sure that the people on the shop floor actually use it. Maybe some weren't trained, or some don't use it because they don't have an understanding of it, whatever it is. Or if it's going to take longer, maybe just having a quick chat with them will make that work. But anyways, making sure that this actually the mechanical aid or whatever it is actually helps is really important. And that's for engineering controls, but you can have the case for repetitive tasks. So, for example, if job rotation is your control for repetitive tasks, generally is the case. Well, that should be assessed to make sure that the task rotation actually reduces the risk by, for example, doing a side-by-side analysis. So if you've never seen this is basically an art tool with left and right. So on the left side you have maybe the first task A, and on the right side you have task B. Well, that's a job rotation. You're analyzing your job rotation here. If you're going from task A to task B, here, if you look at the risk factors, that's a good rotation. Basically, what you want to have is, if you have red on one side, ideally you'd have a green on the other side, just to provide an opportunity to rest those muscle groups or those risk factors here. So this does, as you can see in this analysis, this does it fairly well. So that would be considered a good job rotation, good task rotation. And that just confirms that indeed we reduce the risk here. So that's that for the controls. 3 points there, as I said: diversifying the profiles around the table, tracking the open actions, and reviewing those controls for effectiveness. So we've talked about showing progress, and numbers talk indeed, and we're talking about monitoring and KPIs, key performance indicators. These are really important when you want to communicate to others. Obviously, numbers talk. The way we do it, again, with Easy Ergo, is to show just, for example, the amount of ergonomic tools completed, as you can see. So here, 107, perfect. We also cover it in the open actions. Okay, 106 open actions here. We might get to it, and 0 completed actions. That's not good. We also can show, for example, that it's important to show these things. How many medium risks and high risks do we have? It gives an idea, and we can look back maybe in 2 months, or I don't know, in a year's time, just to see how much this improved, or thing like that. And that's really shows, makes it very simple and practical for everyone to understand, especially senior management team, when you can see that there's so many reds and you brought that number to 0, then they're happy that there's less reds than at the start and more green at the end. That's it. Talking about how many max we have, like how many manual handling tasks, how many repetitive tasks we have, or how many awkward tasks we've assessed here. But could go a bit further than that. It could go as well in the number of incidents, for example, or recording the percentage of tasks assessed, or the number of injuries, and so on and so forth. And analyzing these injuries and all of these KPIs there, absenteeism, ergonomic-related accidents, these help to prevent long-term issues, and they also guide the ergonomics program by setting priorities. For example, if you've had so many accidents on line 2, well, we might just look at line 2 a bit more in detail to check what's wrong, because there's most likely something wrong if people are getting hurt working there. So setting priorities. We've talked about communicating to all, raising awareness, making sure people know what we are doing. So involving them in reporting hazards, in suggesting controls. And these are all things contributing to employee engagement to the program. This is really important because it elevates the program and it just improves the relationship as well between ranks in a workplace. But just like any engagement or relationship, it goes both ways, obviously. And one way to do that is just to provide feedback. So ideally, we have employees reporting hazards to us. And the first thing that we have to do is give feedback to them afterwards. It's like, all right, let's say Tom came to me, very good, or he submitted a near miss form, very good. Well, Tom, I'm going to go back to Tom after I've looked at it. Like, look, Tom, we've looked at that. Indeed, you're right. That's actually a concern. I'm in the process of doing a risk assessment there, and I'll probably call you back when we're looking at improvements, just to have your ideas, your insights on how to improve that. We already have some ideas, but we value your feedback as well. So just involving them in the process, making sure that they're not just submitting something that will go on a shelf or be completely forgotten about. Just going back to the people that actually do the right thing, do the positive behaviors, it goes a long way. But it goes a long way. Simply, it goes a long way. Another thing is to give credits to people that report hazards. For example, if the concern that was raised by Tom goes through the whole process, and we implement a mechanical aid or whatever modification to the work design, and this helps productivity, for example, well, it's very important to say, yeah, this is all thanks to Tom. Thank you, Tom. Let's clap, let's pat on the shoulder. Thanks, Tom. And just doing that just offers gratitude and encourages other positive behaviors. Because at the end of the day, what you want is to nurture this kind of a safe and productive workplace, because that's what everybody wants. The lads on the shop floor, they want to benefit the company, they want to do their work right, and they'll work with you if you work with them, obviously. And some big companies generally have also points awarded, which can result in financial benefits for employees that report hazards. So that can be something as well. But one thing that I'm going to say is that in my experience, the best incentive for employees to be engaged is to see improvement happenings. If they see improvement, they actually do see that you are caring and you are listening and you are acting on what they are raising. And this is by far the best way to get your employees engaged. On the other side, what you need to do as well, not to affect your credibility and this employee engagement, is to own up to mistakes. So for example, if something goes wrong, well, you have to talk about it, you have to communicate on it, and even if it doesn't show progress, even if it doesn't show that it's all great, well, owning up to your mistakes and communicating about it in a positive way just could be lesson learned, right? Well, we've worked on this for a month, and we tried implementing this improvement. It didn't improve whatsoever. Productivity went down. Safety didn't improve whatsoever either. But we understand now what was wrong with that. This is what we learned, and now we're working on it, and we'll come back to you on this anyways. So always just communicating, even on mistakes, even on negatives, just not to affect your credibility. And quick final words, just to finish off, about continuous improvement. I mentioned about lesson learned here. So learning about your mistakes, this improves the program, it elevates the program, and it's very important to keep reviewing this program, keep raising the bar, setting higher targets, higher standards. I see the program as like a cycle, and if I go through the cycle here, we went from hazard identification to risk assessments, to implementing controls, communicating on it, and raising awareness on ergonomics, and reviewing all your controls. And all of this is like a cycle that keeps repeating itself every time we find a new hazard or something keeps raising up, and we go through the full cycle again. And this is like, to me anyways, is like an ascending spiral. It keeps improving with lesson learned, with employee engagement, could be as well with benchmarking with sister or external sites if you're a big company, or just talking just talking about ergonomics to other employees or colleagues in your workplace, just to make sure to get ideas from different people and just to improve that program. And that's the way to do it. But also the main way to do it that I would recommend is to provide opportunities for your Avengers to upscale, to blossom and level up. Iron Man gets a new suit, Mario eats a mushroom, and ergonomists, for example, yeah, they evolve as well to get new experiences, to get new trainings, new certifications, new responsibilities, whatever it is. And all of this opportunities and experiences just get fed back to the program. And this is how to elevate your program, improve your program, and keep it going, keep it improving, setting higher standards, higher targets. So as I said, in a nutshell, having your ergonomics program goes from identifying hazards to reviewing your improvements for effectiveness. And this is all nurtured by employee engagement and continuous improvement. And that's pretty much how to achieve your best practice in managing ergonomics in your workplace. That's it for me. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for attending. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I think we have a little Q&A session there. So feel free to ask in the chat section, please.